What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Heck versus Hell, where the truth we tell. Okay, we are going to go into a mini series. Okay, so wherever it is that you're listening to this at, wherever you are in the world, hi and welcome. If this is your first time on the show, welcome to the family. We all here, we're a family. Okay, so gotta show the love, gotta show the appreciation for all of you that have also been sticking through us even before Heck versus Hell was a thing. Okay, the OGs, triple OGs of the RDDC family. Okay, so I got much love for each and every one of you, and no more one than the other, okay? So I just want to let that be known. I don't want you newbies to be feeling like, well, I don't want to show you guys love, or I have a preference, as growing up in a household of 6 children, well, 5 siblings, I know what it's like to feel excluded in a sense, to not be the favorite pretty much. Okay, so I don't want that feeling for you guys. Definitely don't want it for my children in the near future. But yeah, let's get into this episode because this is going to be a good one that we really need to get into. Okay, we need to talk about hierarchy. Hierarchy. I think there's an extra R in there. Okay, so hierarchy. I just say it like that. I know there's a lot of words that I may pronounce my own unique way. I'm not gonna say mispronounce because nobody can tell me how to speak. Okay, maybe there's a few things that I just don't know what the heck I'm talking about, and I just completely say the wrong word. But that's another issue. Okay, that's more so putting it in the right context. However, the way I say certain words like scarcity, okay, like bestowed, like anything else. But no, I say things a little different. There's a lot of words that I say. So please do not get that to throw you off. Basically focus on the conversation, okay? Whenever we go, and I say this for myself too, because I used to be like this. Whenever we go and we try to think of all the little issues, all the little things, trying to correct someone, even in an argument or something like that. You ever been in an argument with someone and you're just talking and they're over here like, actually, that little piece of information that you just said, nope, that's wrong, that's incorrect. So they're missing the whole point of the whole conversation just because they're focused on that one little thing, right? And that's I dislike that a lot, whenever people don't listen to what you're trying to say. But no, that's no shade or nothing. That's just trying to say, hey, focus to the message. If you want to pause it really quick, make fun of me, cool, that's fine. I don't mind being laughed at. I don't mind being, well, I want to say bullied, but it's good to laugh at yourself. It's good to be unique too, because I don't want any of you to feel like, basically, even in your own life, don't take things personal. Don't take things too personal, even if it is a little correction. Okay, cool, yeah, oops, I've been saying it like that my whole life. That's my bad, I'll fix it. There are some things where it's easier for me to remember the words that way. And it's muscle memory, I guess, pretty much. So if you hear me say bestowed, I can't even remember what the proper word is. Bestowed, maybe. Okay, bestowed, whatever. Okay, the point of this episode is going to be hierarchies. See, I did it again. Okay, well, we're going to talk about the hierarchy of households. Okay, and this is a very important topic that I want to talk about because so many people out here, especially, and we've kind of talked about this previously before, there's a lot of men that are seeming to give away their power. Okay, and I say that very profoundly and intentionally because in the hierarchy, God created such a beautiful form and unity when it comes to all of us. Okay, so I don't ever want you guys to think, and you gals to think, hey, this is the way it is. Men are the ones that have the final say, and this and that. No, it's none of that machismo type of stuff. I grew up in that kind of household, but that's not how it is. Well, I could say I grew up in that kind of household, but it was more so the culture. Household, not so much because my dad, he was a little pushovery, I guess you could say. Okay, so that's something completely else. So what I want to talk about this segment specifically is going to be for the men. Okay, so we're going to have three separate segment: the man, the woman, and the child. Okay, those are going to be the segments, and then the final one to bring it all together is going to be God. Okay, having God as the center. So, all right, men, listen up, and you women, listen up too, because you have to understand this as well whenever you're seeking a man, whenever you want a partner in your relationship. You have to understand this is the type of man you want, and it's not for the point of trying to find someone that can subdue you or dominate you, nothing like that. Is the point of having something that will actually last, and having something the way it was made to be had, right? Because we could have a topic conversation about sex, right? Sex, um that's something that is perfectly placed in a marriage. Okay, outside of a marriage, I've heard some people use this analogy: outside of a marriage, sex is like fire, right? And in a marriage, it's basically a contained fire in a campfire in a fireplace, whatever. And outside, it can wreak havoc. And it's to the point where you can literally go and scar people. You can go and get so infiltrated. What's the word? What's the word? Compromised in your morals. Contaminated? No, that's not the word I'm looking for. I hate whenever this happens. This happens so often where I lose the word and I can't think of the word. But corrupted, where you get so corrupted in the way you view a certain thing. Okay, and that's one thing we spoke about previously about how certain videos, I didn't give the warning at the beginning, so I'm saying certain videos, certain types of things that cause you to lust, and it corrupts the perception of what the action is supposed to be. Okay, so sex is something that is supposed to be really sacred inside of marriage. So, in this similar manner, we're going to talk about the hierarchy. Okay, we're going to talk about how these are the positions that will make you have a genuinely happy life. And men, this one's directed to you. Okay, so now that we're 7 minutes in, let's begin. So, as a man, you need to understand that you are responsible for the well being, for the safety, for basically the lives of those that are your wife and your children. Even if you have to extend that over and the wife's parents, even if it's your parents, you have to be the one that's put in that responsibility. Okay, so that's the number one thing that we must understand, because one thing that I see so often happen nowadays is that we get to the position, to the point where we allow women to take over the relationship. Okay, they're the ones in the control. They're the ones that wear the pants, and it ruins a lot of relationships. You may know it or not. You may feel like you're happy or not, but if you really look at it, you're not. Okay, it doesn't matter in one way or another. You don't respect yourself as the man you're supposed to be if you're doing that. And that's a big problem that a lot of people have. And there's so many people trying to speak towards it, basically saying, "Oh yeah, I'm okay with it," but you know that they're really not. There's people that go and they have an open relationship, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically when you're in a relationship with someone and you or them can go and date other people and sleep with other people and all this and that, but you still come home at the end of the day to that partner. That is something that is horrible. Horrible, 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 because you're bringing in outside influences to tarnish the relationship. That's more like succumbing in a sense. Um, and as men, you got to have a firm foundation to where you stand. Okay, so if you go back, let's go back to Adam and Eve whenever God created man. So if you look at it, you want to go back to Adam and Eve. Whenever God created man, it was so beautifully structured, and a lot of the things he did whenever they created, was bringing together what was good. Okay, so even whenever to the point of Adam being created, they told Adam, look for a companion, basically. And he was looking through the animals and he was looking through different things, and none of them would work. So what he did, because they said it is not good for man to be alone, right? So what they did is they gave a companion. Okay, they took the rib of Adam and they made a woman. So technically, Adam was the only man, and I say man out of the sense of mankind, right? Mankind is us as spiritual beings, okay, not humans, because hum comes from the root word humus, okay, and humus means earth. So man is the spirit, okay. So whenever I say man, I don't necessarily mean man, male or female, okay. I'm trying to say man as in mankind, okay. So when God created man, Adam was the only one that he actually took from the ground, took from dirt, and created him. And everything else was just, okay, this is the foundation. Now let's continue. So, what had happened was the whole point of why they got kicked out of Eden, if you look at it and you actually analyze it, it was God gave the command, okay? Before anything, he said, first, you are to work. Okay, we're going to go into this. It's going to be real short, but we're going to go into it. First, you are to work. That's one of the most important things that you have to do as a man. You have to be passionate and put your work. And I say work intentionally because work, I mean your purpose. You have to put your purpose above anything else, no matter if it compromises the relationship you're in, no matter if it compromises their family, the people you grew up in, um, anybody you've known for a long time, you have to put your purpose first. Okay, so your work, that is something that is very important, very crucial that we put first and foremost. And that's absolutely why I love my soon to be wife, because we have that mutual understanding, and vice versa. I want that to be, because whenever you're doing your work, you're doing God's will. Okay, we understand that this life is temporary and we're living it as a companionship. Okay, so it's not, I wouldn't say take it lightly, but don't look at it more serious than your relationship with God, with your purpose of affecting so many people in this world. Okay? So it's a gift, it's a blessing to be married. It's a blessing to have a partnership and a companion and someone you're so compatible with. So as a man and the hierarchy, you got to focus on your purpose first, even if that's before your kids, your wife, your family, anything. Your purpose comes first. And if you got to understand that, because even the disciples, they went and they left all their friends, their family, their houses, their land, their livestock, they left everything to follow Christ. Because ultimately, that's where we're heading. Whenever you do that, it's very crucial, because that's a point of leading. Okay, as men, we're supposed to be leaders. That's why God gave man the commandments. That was way before Eve was created. That was way before Eve came to be. Okay, so you were given the commandments as men, and the first commandment was to work. Later, down the line, once Eve was created, then the commandment was be fruitful and multiply. Okay, so we are given this commandment to work. We have to understand, first and foremost, that's the number one thing we got to focus on. It doesn't matter who comes in or out of your life. Whenever you focus on that, everything will be okay. Because even Joseph, look at the book of Genesis, when Joseph was over here living in work, and he didn't even understand it all the way. He was actually being led, but he was obedient. And that's the good thing about it. He was obedient, so he kept on his work. He ensured that he was following the will of Christ, the will of God. And because of that, he was put as the second most powerful in command before anybody. He was led by God really good. Okay, that was a position, and because he focused on that, he wasn't over here trying to chase the desires of his work, of the world, or even the desires of his own heart. Who knows if those were his desires or not? But even through his children, he named one of his child. Actually, he named him. I can't remember if it's Manasseh, the one that basically means we are blessed even in this place that is not our dwelling point. So you understand the love he had for God. You understand that he didn't fully enjoy being the second in command when it came to being the most powerful person in the world, because he was more so focused on, I'm gonna do what I have to do. And that's love, sacrifice. Okay, so that's number two. We have to go and be the ones to ultimately sacrifice so much. So, as the leader, as the head, as the foundation of the family, you are the bottom of the totem. Okay, so you have to be the one that the family grows from. It doesn't matter if you get no glory, no appreciation, although that is something that we'll also talk about whenever we get into that episode about women. It's something that you have to make sure you sacrifice, and men understand this. As there's a lot of people that talk about how basically men are some of the least appreciated people in the world, but they provide the most value, in a sense, is what they say, right? But it's still, I wouldn't look at it like that either, because we're all man. We should all be looked at equally. And I'm not talking about all of this Black Lives Matter and certain rights and activist movements, all these movements. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about to the core, actually looked at in love, in seeing someone else greater than yourself, because then you can be a really good servant. Because people out here that are doing, even protesting against certain people that do different types of speaking engagements. For example, Jordan B. Peterson, he's someone that speaks a lot of truth, and he speaks against the left wing, the whole left and right wing that's going on in the United States. If you don't know all that's going on over here, you're from a different country. Well, it's kind of just new age movements, I guess you could call them. That's what they call them, where they're trying to bring in the whole understanding of different rights. They call them like LGBT, rainbow community rights, and going into these different types of things. Okay, so they have like a separation, a division right there. And one of the speakers, he's a Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. He speaks on why it's wrong and why certain things should be addressed and looked at, because a lot of those situations, I don't know exactly how he says it, but he also looks for mental health healing. Okay, so he focuses on that, and helping young men, like we're trying to do right now, helping young men from get out of depression, get out of their suicidal thoughts, and get out of all of this. And I have to put that in there too. Always, if you are having those type of thoughts, do what you can to reach out. Please reach out to the email directly, because sometimes these comments, they get past us. So I'd rather you email us directly if you don't want to call a hotline or something. We always encourage you, if that's the way you want to go, call a hotline, but email us directly. The email that I most see is flipdaswitch@reborn.com. So if you have some type of problem or you're going through any battle like that, please reach out to us directly, okay? Because you matter. And I just want to leave that in there right there real quick. Because that's something that's actually taken on a lot of the world. A bunch of suicides are from men, and what he did is to show that these people aren't truly committed to what they do. He went and he set up, they were always protesting at his events, at his speaking engagements. So he set one up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was no protesters at all, because they are not that committed. Okay, so you have to understand that there's so much stuff that goes on in this world, and a lot of that agenda, a part of that agenda, I wouldn't be considered on left or right wings and nothing like that, because I'm trying to spread love for everybody. A lot of that agenda is to neutralize man, because if you look at it too, look at the book of Job, the devil's always trying to come after the man. The devil was saying, "Hey, let me test your servant. Let me test Job. Let me see how he folds, because we're made to be the leaders. We're made to be the foundation of where people would go. Okay, so that does not make women less than us. I want you to remember that. That does not make you better than a woman. That does not mean, oh, women are supposed to marry up and guys marry down, or none of this nonsense. I'm saying you're supposed to be valuable. And you are, right? You already are, but I want you to hone your value and understanding those as a leader, as a protector and sacrifice. Those are very important keys that you need to have as a man. Sacrifice. It is extremely big, but the thing about sacrifice is that's very correlated to love. Okay? So I don't mean compromise, I mean sacrifice. So that could be sacrificing your sleep, sacrificing something you like to do and choosing to go and do something for a loved one, whatever it may be. It's sacrifices, and those are acts of love. So when you sacrifice, you become a better leader because you were leading in love. Ooh, that should be. I might have to do an episode of that, leading in love. So those are two of the major keys right there. And the third would be have some freaking respect. Okay, I'm gonna say freaking. I'm not gonna say effing. I'm not gonna say any of that. I want to say that very, again, intentionally, because so much times I've seen people where they lack the self-respect that they have, and whenever you do that, it's the same way as anything else. If you look at yourself some type of way, you're going to project it onto someone else. If you lack self-respect, you are not going to respect other things. You are not going to respect your purpose, your mission, your wife, your kids. You're not going to have a lot of respect for others. So first and foremost, you have to have that respect for yourself so you can earn that respect from your wife and your children. Okay, so your wife, one of the things that they have to give you is that respect, but you cannot get that respect if you are not doing first those two things that we talked about. If you are not sacrificing from love, if you are not going after your purpose, even if your purpose or passion is flipping burgers, do something to the fullest that you want to do. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, and I say flipping burgers because some people can really get out there and flip some mean burgers and just master chef it out here. Okay, so I don't mean that to degrade or do anything wrong. Say anything's wrong. Everybody starts somewhere. Even if you're starting off in McDonald's, and you're actually pursuing that with such an intention, you're such a good chef in the kitchen, not no Krabby Patty SpongeBob stuff, but if you're just going and pursuing it to the best of your ability, you could start off in McDonald's and end up owning a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Because of your passion, because of how much you love to do it. Okay, so love is actually the whole foundation of this. Okay, I just want y'all to know that and be aware of that. So now we're going into respect. Whenever we speak of respect, that is something that you have to demand as a man. And the only way you can demand it is the way you carry yourself. That's it. That's the simplest way to put it. Even if someone disrespects you so much to the point where you might get angry and you might want to do something to them, it may have not even escalated to that situation if you carried yourself a certain type of way. And I say that because let me go into a little bit of a story. Let's go story time. My dad, he was, I want to say 19 whenever he had my older brother. So he was young. He was a young adult, young parent. My mother, I think she was like 14. So they were both young parents. And he got to the point where he would just give his checkup. He was kind of living to a certain extent, just making money, and he wouldn't know how to move his money. He would just give it up, give it to my mom. So these titles, I'm just saying them so you guys can know. I don't want you guys to think, oh, these are people to have homage. Once you become a man, once you become a woman, you have to understand that these things at certain times have to fade away. Okay, so now I kind of see them as siblings, and that comes from different things that we can speak of, different actions that were done unto me and against me, that I can't have the sense of respect that they deserve. So I don't disrespect them, but I can't respect them, right? So I just want to make that very clear. So whenever he was younger, okay, whenever he was growing up and all that stuff, he just had so much lack of self respect. And I don't know exactly where it came from. I don't know how it happened. I don't know any of that. But it got to the point where my mother was just doing things, being a little bit promiscuous behind his back and all that. And all I remember seeing growing up was him begging and crying to her, and her basically in a metaphoric sense having her foot on his throat. That's all I saw. And it was that lack of self-respect. He didn't carry around his respect. He just got drunk. He would go, start crying and all that. He was an emotional drunk. So thankfully he wasn't, an aggressive drunk. I know some people have problems like that, but he was a very emotional drunk, and he would go and use that as his vice and to try to bring out his feelings. So he would get mentally incapacitated because of that. So whenever you understand, that's why I say sex is very dangerous, and it is like a fire. That analogy that people use, that's exactly what it is like, because in that situation, that was outside of wedlock. That situation was happening outside of wedlock. Okay, so he gave up his power. He gave up the point of having his own cistern to drink with, to even having the respect to get married. He gave that up, and he gave up his position as a man because he decided to have sex before and after, out of wedlock. Okay, whenever you go into marriage, there has to be a sense of respect that comes into play. Okay, so it doesn't just have to mean all those, having the purpose and having the sacrifice, because he had those too, but he lacked respect. He lacked it so much, to the point where he would have my mom cheating on him right in his face. He wouldn't do nothing. He wouldn't do nothing. He wouldn't demand the respect that he needed. He was to the point where, up until I think once I got to the age of 14, I lacked respect in him because of certain different things. We found out about certain things that were going on in the dark side of things, and he never acted or did anything because of those actions. Okay, he didn't show that manhood, I guess you could say. I don't know, that standing tall for what you believe in. So there was something there that I just didn't respect, because I remember whenever I found out about that, I was only like, 10 years old, and that was the first time I ever thought of murder, about murdering someone. So I don't know how he did it, and that was not no self-control. It was a sense of cowardness. So he did not do the sacrifice of even putting himself in a position to where he could go and, show a little bit of, get that respect, show that sacrifice and love for his children. That's how I saw it. That's how I perceived it. And if you ask him, he could make all types of excuses of why he never did anything, but I know it was a sense of cowardness to it. So it doesn't matter where you stand, the respect also comes from your morals, from your beliefs. Okay, because someone that even has messed up, construed morals, they don't respect themselves either. They may have a sense of pride, but pride is just false confidence. Okay, there's a difference between pride and confidence. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance and cockiness, right? There's a huge difference in that. And that's why I say carry yourself with respect, because you have to understand who you are. So that's another key right there to having the self-respect, is understanding who you are. And one of the things that you are, most importantly, is you were a child of the Most High. So you have to understand these things so you can have that type of respect for yourself and be able to deliver what you must unto this world. Okay, so these are things to be had as a man, even if you are not planning on getting married, even if you're not planning on that. These are still things that you should have as a man, that you need to have. So you got to make sure that you can give that type of respect to yourself first and foremost, because then your life will be less, I wouldn't say less complicated, but you'd have less certain issues that wouldn't transpire in certain ways, and you would basically the ghetto. Unfortunately, there's so much misconstrued, and they don't have that foundation. This is why I'm telling you, this is why I'm making sure that we break the pattern. They don't have that foundation to tell them, hey, this is what you need to have, this is how you need to lead. The family fell apart. There was no morals, there was no foundation. You shouldn't steal, you shouldn't kill, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be put yourself in this position. And because of my lack of respect, that's why I went down to that part of life. Okay, so he had two of those three elements to an extent, but that third one, it was where I had to go down that path, because I had to have that self respect and find that self respect for myself. I didn't have a set in stone role model. You know, he was a good man. I will say he did what he could. He worked a lot. He got to a certain point, but it's a mixture of all of them. You have to have all these combinations so you can have the family, if that's what you want, that you deserve, or even be seen as a man you deserve. Okay, even if you're never going to get married. Now, I'm not condoning you to go and not get married just so you can sleep with multiple women. That is not what you should do. If you're to that point, fix yourself first, implement these three, and you will attract the right and perfect one that God wants in your life. Okay, I say that because I've seen it in my life. That's how it happened in my life. I didn't even know I was looking for it, but I held myself to this perspective. Okay, so whenever you don't have that respect, that's when the foundation can fall. Even if you're putting in the sacrifice, even if you're passionate about what you do, if you don't have that respect, that's still a chink in the chain. Okay, so those are three keys that you need to have as a man to even start a family, to even be seen as a man, because something that I just really, really hate is whenever people say they're going to do something and they don't do it. And I've been guilty of that before too. Sometimes things slip my mind, or sometimes I've previously been in positions where I just lied. I said I was going to do something, I didn't do it. Other times it was because I wanted to hide my type of intention or something. And that could have been like, no, I won't go beat him up. And then I go beat him up or something. So that's there's certain times when I've done that too, but now I'm to the point, and that's how we all grow, right? Is learning from our wrongs. We have to know that what we're doing is wrong, where we're standing is wrong, and we need to elevate. So it's all levels. Every life has a level, and to every level there's another devil. Okay? So we got to constantly be fighting towards the progression. The This is not the end goal. This is not where you're going to end up. There's so much more that awaits you, and there is so much greatness within you. And these three principles are what you need to have in order to unleash that greatness. Okay, so this hierarchy doesn't just mean, okay, this is for families, right? But as a man, these are things that you need to have within the family, because then you will have a wife that's obedient and that has everything, shows you the respect that you deserve and gives you the love you deserve, and actually listens to what you got to say. Because nowadays there's so much females out here that are basically saying no, they're not going to change their clothes if their man asks them to. And as a man, you should have a say in that. Because and this is where we're going to go into it as women too, about respecting your man. Because we understand, right? As men, just put this in here as a little preview of the next episode. We understand what goes on in the man's mind. We understand the dangers that can transpire, and we understand that physically we are stronger most of the time. There's some really strong women out here, but most of the time we're physically stronger, and they can be subdued, and they are more vulnerable to physical attacks, especially because we understand what men see and think. And it's like going to a place where there's so much high crime, and you're walking around flashing cash, and you don't get, you get robbed. You can't say it was your fault per se, but you're dumb for doing that. Like that was stupid on your behalf. And I'm not saying you are in the fault. It's your fault all the way, but you could have prevented that. That was a consequence of your own decision, whether it was flaunting that money, right? You're flaunting something else. You're flaunting something else that people desire. And unfortunately, that's why women do it too. But if you don't have that respect as a man, if you're not doing what you need to do as a man, you can't have that say. And if you're doing everything that you need to do as a man, you need to respect yourself enough to walk away from that relationship. Okay, so that's where it comes in too. You got to respect yourself as who you are to be able to walk away from everything that you need to. So that's a part of sacrifice too. But if you don't respect yourself to a certain extent, you're not going to sacrifice, you're going to compromise. You're going to compromise on your dreams. You're going to compromise on the greatness that God has put within you. And you're going to compromise on that life that God has placed ahead of you to make sure this is where I want you, son. This is where I want you to be. These are the things that you need to have before I can place you in the life that I have prepared for you, in the table I have prepared for you. These are the 3 things that you need before you need to go into that placement. Okay, so I wasn't even planning on saying 3. I was just going to go on a whole conversation, but those are the 3 things. To reiterate it, it's put your purpose first and foremost. Always put your purpose first. Have the sacrifice and make the sacrifices that you need to make. So that comes along with discipline, okay? That comes right along with discipline. So lead in love, that's number 2, sacrifices. And number 3 is have that respect, that self-respect. Because only then can you respect other people. Only then will you receive that respect from other people because you respect yourself. It's these type of things that we are needing to hear in this generation, especially in these times, especially because everything you see in social media, everything you see in society will tell you the contrary. And so many people, so many males will lie to you and tell you this is what we want, when in reality they're in chains. I've seen men, grown men, and I don't even want to call them men. I've seen grown males go on podcasts, on broadcasts, and they talk about this is what they want, and in their eyes you can see the damage that's done. You can see they almost look like men that are chained down and they're forced into the beliefs of these women that they compromise for. Okay, so they saw themselves so lowly. They didn't have the self-respect that they needed to have, so they were at someone's knees. They gave away their power. Okay, and if you read Proverbs, let me look that up for you really quick, but there's a proverb that says, do not give away your power. Let me look that up real quick. So this is Proverbs 31:3. And it says in the New International Version, do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. And the thing about it is, women, they can take your power. And in that sense, it's you chasing after them. So you're giving them power, or you being to the point where you're pursuing sex so much, right, to where you give them the power. Hey, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do what I have to do. I'll give you this, I'll give you that. You give them certain powers, and in turn, that comes your respect. And there are so much kings that have fallen from giving away their power like that, from giving into lust. So, of course, bringing it all together, you have to have the foundation as a man. You have to have a good foundation, not good on what we see to be good, but on what our Father sees to be good. We have to understand that all these come from the same principles that we always teach. Okay, so give without expecting back. That's part of the sacrifice. Love so much. Love your neighbor so much. It doesn't matter how much you want to hate them. Forgive them. Forgive them. Because whenever you hate someone, whenever you hate an action, it taints your heart. Okay, it's like poison. We said it before. It's like poison. You wouldn't wait for a snake to apologize to try to get the poison out of you, would you? No, you wouldn't. And that's what you're doing. Whenever you have some type of trauma, some type of resentment, you're holding in that poison. Whenever you're not going off of these principles of biblical foundations of what Yeshua taught, you're going and creating a life that for you that cannot be. So even if you go, you still, these are foundations as a man, okay? So we can go into a whole nother category of foundations of the man of God. I have so many bullet points, so many notes of what we can talk about and where we need to be, commandments that we've been given, even when it comes to not complaining, not grumbling, loving so hard, forgiving everyone, being to that point where you're just sacrificing so much. There's a bunch of bullet points that we can go through, a whole different conversation as a man of God, but this is as a man. So if you decide to use this as good or bad, whenever you're chasing your foundation, your purpose, number one, that should automatically be, that cannot be found unless you have the good heart, okay? Unless you have the foundations of Christ in you, you cannot find your purpose. So everything else will fall regardless. You can still be to the point where you kind of have, someone that you may like or something like that, but it will never be the one that God wanted you to have. Okay? So this is episode number 1, theory number 1, and I want you to make sure you listen to this and understand that this can even be used for bad. So these are just foundations that you need to have as a man in a hierarchy, in a relationship. Okay, so do not give away your power. That's number 1, because so many men, oh my goodness, I could say this over and over. I could talk about this for days. So many men give away their power. And there's too many men that when they do that is whenever those suicidal thoughts come into play, whenever they get to the point where they hate their life, whenever they get to the point where they don't want to keep living the same life, because they get to that point where they don't respect themselves, where they don't have the life they believe they deserve, where they're not being loved and appreciated because they're missing one of these 3 keys. Okay, so these are 3 keys that will not only help you be the man that you were meant to be, but to give you the life that you're meant to have. Okay? So this is very crucial that we hear this and we understand this, and I'm hearing it too. Okay, I'm right there with you. There's sometimes I fall short. I don't see myself in the respect that I need to see myself in. There's been times where I just respected myself and I disrespected myself, and I gave away my power. Okay, that's why I'm saying it too, from the point of experience. And I just want to be very clear on that. I've been to that point. I've been to the point where, just like my dad, I've had a woman's foot on my throat. I wouldn't even call her a woman. That was a girl. A woman is something that is not to be given lightly. Just like a man, the title of man should not be given lightly. So you need to ask yourself, are you a man or are you a boy? Okay? Tell me that. Let me know where you stand. Because we need men in this world. There is way too many boys. There's 40-year-old boys out here still walking around. 30, 40, 50-year-old boys. We need men in this world. Because those are the ones that lead. Okay? So, change up. It's always good to change, because you're not really changing at all. You're actually going back to what you were always meant to be. You're taking off the coat and the mask that you put on to try to survive in this world. It's time for you to stand up and unleash that beast. Ooh, unleash that beast. That's right. So be the man, feel the change, and embrace that power of the spirit within, because that is the most powerful spirit we can have. I know if you know where that's from the Real Double Dose channel. I just took Lex's line, but that's exactly what needed to be said at that time. I love you all. I hope you heard this message once again. Keep following, keep chasing your purpose, and let's get to it and put that work in for God. All right? I'll catch you all on the flip side.